Hi, so I just wanted to chat for a bit while I kind of think about what I want to eat for lunch. And I've been doing all these SCP videos on my other channel, Feel to Fi, and it kind of made me think a little bit about the fact that obviously I'm not the only one who's talking about SCPs. Obviously, there are other videos out there, and whether I want to watch them. Now, when I first started looking into a lot of these SCPs, I had no idea that they even existed. And there's such a difference between watching a movie versus watching a book. I feel like in your head, you create an idea of what the story is supposed to be. And I was talking to Charming in the comment section, and they were telling me that for 007, there has already been an artist rendering of the SCP. They've already somebody has already gone into it, and for a moment there I was about to go and rush over and see that video, but I was like, but then that will change the perception I have of the SCPs in my head. And currently I already have a perception of what the back rooms are supposed to be and what the various other SCPs are supposed to be. And I feel like for me, this is really movie versus book. If I watch a movie of Lord of the Rings, I'm going to perceive Frodo as Frodo the way it's portrayed as by the actor Elijah Woods. But if I read the book, like when I read the book when I was really young, Frodo didn't look like Elijah Woods. Frodo looked very different. Not that to say that Elijah Woods isn't a good variation or a good characterization of Frodo, but it gets locked in, same as Harry Potter. The design, the concept gets very locked in, and you start to associate the actor or the script writing or the way it's been portrayed on screen as the end all of how the character is supposed to be portrayed as. And so for that reason, I feel like I really want to continue with my goal to read and to learn about every single SCP featured on the calendar. And I want to just base all of my interpretation, all of my experience on what has been portrayed and the images provided as support to those stories. Because I think that is going to be the most genuine and authentic way of me perceiving the realities being presented to me. If I start to gravitate and start to watch other people's interpretations, I might end up developing different ideas that might not even be canon based on the way somebody else has portrayed or has interpreted a certain SCP. And I don't know, you let me know in the comment section below your opinion of this. But for me, I think when I started out doing this series, my goal was to just read every single bit of information and come to my own conclusion without any outside influence, and have an understanding of like where these writers are coming from and like why they're creating the creations that they're creating based on how they've written it and not based on somebody else's interpretation of their work. So yeah, so I'm making a commitment to myself now via this video that I'm not going to consume any other media except for the backrooms, because I've already spoiled that one. But for all the other SCPs, I'm going to try my best to just read what has already been provided on the SCP Foundation. And then once I complete and finish the whole entire calendar, then I can start looking at artist interpretation, artist rendering, videos, and other theories and stuff like that. So what does that mean for me? It means that if I'm really trying to stick with this idea that I've come up with myself, this self-imposed, strict consumption of this media, that does mean that I probably will not be reviewing anything else beyond Cane Pixels that is specifically talking about or going into like what is the back rooms, because even like when I first looked at Kane Pixel's work, I realized that a lot of it is very much based on his interpretation of what the back rooms are, and there are some gaps or loopholes in based on what I see in the the SCP Foundation and what is being portrayed there. And that is also okay, because I think it's a Creative Commons project, so I think it's okay, it's open to interpretations. But it does make me feel that if I base my impression on the backrooms based on his work, it would not be what was the original take of the backrooms. And that's why it's so important to read the SCP and to see what it is that the writers first meant it to be. And then actually it becomes more interesting and more exciting to see other people's interpretation, because I will have a basis based on the original, and I can see where it has differed or where it's been developed, and see how unique the other person's interpretation is, rather than, you know, doing this comparing two pictures and seeing what's missing, seeing what's added game, you know. So yeah, I thought I'd just share my thoughts about like the process I'm going through with the SCP and the direction this is going in. And I know nobody really watches my videos, or I don't really have a lot of very like exciting or booms or interesting or crazy content on this channel, and I think I'm okay with that. I'm actually really happy so far, like the direction the channel's been going in. And I think that the more I read the SCP stories and the more I get deeper and deeper into like the thought processes of these writers, the more I realize that my own personal writing is quite safe. I've never really touched on anything particularly like jarring or like aggressive. And also I've learned certain things about myself, like the word you'll see if you watch my videos, there's a word that starts with S, and that triggers me a lot, and therefore I realize I don't actually like to say it in person, and I don't really like to refer to it online. And so that's been interesting, and I feel like that is something I probably need to explore with maybe a therapist or maybe some self-help books. And so yeah, I'm quite excited to learn more things about the SCPs, about myself in this process. And I think I'm going to be so excited after I finish reading the whole calendar to finally be able to now look at all the things that other people have made based on all the SCPs, and be able to understand it, understand the complexities, understand the thought that went behind it, and even understand like why people might have deferred, maybe to eliminate things that trigger them, or maybe to add things that are more meaningful to them. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on like my progress with the SCP and looking into it. And for those who comment regularly and talk to me about the SCPs, I seriously think that you guys are the best. Seriously, I don't know many people, and you can clearly see the numbers and the views. There are not many people who are just gonna want to be here and just talk about random obscure topics on the internet. And I really appreciate every single one of you who says hi, who comments, and who watches the videos, because that encourages me, and I feel like I'm in my own little SCP support group where we're all just like looking into this stuff and everything. But this also means that I do apologize if you guys want to actually share any content created based on the SCPs. I know I've asked in various other videos, but I'm gonna have to stop saying that, and I'm gonna have to say let's all just calm down. I think what I don't mind is you telling me your opinion about the SCP that we're talking about, or like how it's similar to another SCP and things like that, so that I can go on and keep looking into the SCPs on the SCP Foundation website. So having an open discussion about that is good. But yeah, we're gonna all have to just like hold our horses and wait until the series is over to finally actually talk about like explorative content. This also means that on TikTok, I know that there are writers who write SCP content who have TikToks. I am going to earnestly avoid any content on TikTok that is SCP related because it's so addictive. I think I remember there was this one writer, I forgot her user handle, but she was going on into like some of the processes that she has when it comes to the SCP Foundation, and that was one of the biggest things that actually got me hooked to wanted to look into it and actually see, like, get invested, because seeing the passion and like the desire of the writers to do such a good job with the stories that they create spurred me on and made me like, oh yeah, there's people behind this. There are people who think about these things and who have a lot, you know, of themselves poured into their writing. And so I want to appreciate that first. Appreciate the writing, appreciate the ideas behind it, and then look at what other people have created based on their concepts. So yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here. Thank you so much for listening to the Stream of Conscious. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are seriously the OG people. Wow. I really appreciate you, besties. I appreciate you guys so much. And yeah, look forward to more SCP content on my other channel. Feel to my bye. Another thing I guess I could also say is I'm not going to do any more Twitch streams because a lot of it is just reading the SCPs, and sometimes like SCP-012 and 013 was so problematic for me because of the S word turning up and I getting triggered. And so I definitely am not going to do that live ever again, just because, you know, I think it's best to just edit things out that need to be edited in order to avoid putting certain things out there in the world. Either that will trigger me or might trigger you. And oh, do let me know in the comment section below if you know of an SCP that I should be aware of, like that you know probably has references to the S word, or may even have references to things that could be super triggering to other people. Do let me know in the comment section below so that I can take note of it, put it in my little diagram thingy that I have on Notion, and when I come up to that SCP, I take further precautions to just make sure that you also have a good viewing experience. Because like, no offense to the writers or anything, I really feel like sometimes you have to touch on dark topics in order to convey the story in its authentic self, in its authentic way. But that also means that as a viewer, as a reader, one must self-guard themselves, because like some people can take it, some people cannot. So it would really be a huge amount of help if any of you who are watching this, if you know of a specific SCP that has like specific very bad or very negative like experiences or ideas behind it. I'm not talking about monsters. I mean, monsters are straight up like, you know what you're getting. You know, it's a monster. It most likely has a horrible backstory. Like for example, 004, the door and all the death and gore that comes with it. But I am talking about certain things that might be like SA, or you know, something, you know, something that probably would lead to somebody getting triggered. Yeah, do let me know and I will take note of that as well. Okay, anyway, I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, may your days be magical, and I'll see you in the next time. Mwah. Bye bye.